Today we're talking about bloating, that frustrating, swollen, why do I look 5 months pregnant feeling. Most people with bloating end up living in stretchy pants or feeling super frustrated when all they've been told is it's just IBS. But here's the thing about bloating. It's not just about what you're eating, but how well your gut is actually working. I'm Dr. Mitch Rice, board certified family medicine doctor with a focus on integrative care. And today I'm gonna walk you through the exact roadmap that I use in order to get to the root cause of bloating and how to fix it. Now, the first thing that I would do is to rule out the most common causes of bloating, because 9 times out of 10, the body is following a pattern. Whether it's tied to meals, hormones, or gut motility, once we spot that pattern, it's at that point that we can do something about it. So the first thing that I always look at and investigate in someone that has chronic bloating are food intolerances. Now, food intolerances are not the same thing as food allergies. Food allergies trigger your immune system, whereas food intolerances mess up your metabolism, your enzymes, and your gut lining, all without really showing up on blood work. Now, I always start with both dairy and gluten because these are the 2 most common food intolerances, but there are other culprits at play. Think apples, honey, high fructose corn syrup, histamine, things like red wine or leftovers in the fridge for more than a couple of days, FODMAPs like onion, garlic, and cauliflower, or sugar alcohols like xylitol and sorbitol. The symptoms of food intolerances usually go beyond just bloating. If you have too much histamine or a histamine overload, think of things like flushing, brain fog, and fatigue after eating leftovers or drinking red wine. If you have fructose or FODMAP intolerance, think of things like lower abdominal bloating, gas, and diarrhea. Now, these reactions with specific food intolerances are often dose dependent. This means that the symptoms get worse with the more of that specific food that you eat. Some people that have gluten sensitivity or gluten food intolerance may be able to eat a piece of bread, but if they eat 5 pieces of bread as well as a cupcake, this may really wreck their stomachs. The other thing about food intolerances is they can develop and change over time. Now, to test for these specific food intolerances, what I recommend to my patients is doing an elimination diet in a 30-day stepwise progression. So for example, I always tell patients to start with no dairy or any dairy-like products, think milk, cheese, yogurt, for at least 30 days. Track your symptoms and see how your stomach feels. If this helps significantly, great, we have our answer. If it doesn't, go to the next step, and I recommend starting with gluten and doing the same thing for 30 days. So cutting out things that have wheat, barley, or rye, and doing so for 30 days to see if that helps the bloating. You could keep doing this in a stepwise sequence, and the next ones that I do recommend starting or trying, if you've done dairy and gluten already, is doing the fructose, because that's a very common cause, as well as the FODMAPs. Now, the second thing that I look for that's pretty common overall is gut dyssymbiosis, or an imbalance in the overall gut flora. Your gut is home to trillions of little bacteria, and when the balance of the good versus bad bacteria is off by even a little bit, your digestion pays the price. Dyssymbiosis can mean too few of the good bacteria, like lactobacillus or bifidobacteria, or too many of the opportunistic bacteria like Klebsiella or certain Clostridia. And dyssymbiosis includes a total lack of diversity, which actually matters more than quantity. If you have gut dyssymbiosis, it can feel like your stomach bloats and reacts to pretty much anything. Common symptoms include chronic bloating, especially after fiber-rich foods, gas or stool that's pretty foul smelling, new food sensitivities, and even even irregular stool patterns. Like sometimes you're constipated for a few days, other times you go to the bathroom and it's pretty loose or runny stools. These are very common things we see. Now, the major triggers of gut dyssymbiosis can be antibiotic use, and even a one-time antibiotic use without probiotics can wreak havoc on this gut microbiome balance. Chronic stress, eating ultra processed foods, and even significant sleep loss. So things with gut dyssymbiosis get very nuanced very quickly, and I don't have time to cover all of those details in this video, but there are a few things that you can try to help fix that gut dyssymbiosis starting today. Trying to regulate your stress as best you can, and I know that's much easier said than done. Eating fermented foods such as kefir and yogurt. I would start in small quantities because too many fermented foods can irritate the stomach at first. And then having specific and targeted prebiotics, which target and fuel the good bacteria, and this is something like inulin. And then targeted probiotics, which can be things like lactobacillus or bifidobacterium, as well as Saccharomyces boulardii. The bottom line is this: having good and regulated gut symbiosis doesn't mean just fueling your body with the good bacteria, but rather creating the right environment for the good bacteria to actually thrive. And for many people, this starts by removing the culprit that's causing the bad bacteria to thrive, and it's by adding in the right environmental structure for that good bacteria, as we talked about before. By the way, if you're looking for a clinically backed good pre and probiotic combo, there's one that I recommend in particular that I think works really, really well for my patients that struggle with bloating and gut health. And if you're interested, I'll put a link to that in the description below. And the third thing that I talk about and rule out with patients who struggle with bloating, and this is one that's very common nowadays, is SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This isn't just about gas production. SIBO can actually hijack your overall digestion. Instead of the bacteria only living in the large bowel or the colon where they produce the gas, they actually make their way into the small bowel and produce that gas, giving that significant bloating feeling that happens all the time. SIBO is especially common for people that take frequent antibiotic use. Now, bloating isn't just a side effect that's uncomfortable, it's an actual mechanical process driven by the wrong microbes in the wrong place. Now, the best way to test for SIBO is a lactulose breath test that can look for both the hydrogen and the methane gases that are produced by these bacteria. And the fourth thing that I always look for in patients, and this is one that may surprise you a little bit, and it's what I call hidden constipation. Even if you're having bowel movements every day or every other day, you can still be functionally constipated. This means that stool isn't moving out fully or quickly enough. You can think of your gut like a conveyor belt. When things slow down, everything starts to get backed up. When things get backed up, the bacteria living in your gut have more time to ferment those foods, which produces gas, and that gas buildup leads to that bloating feeling and sensation. Constipation also slows down the flow of bile, which is important for breaking down fats in our digestive system. Some signs that you may be functionally constipated are feeling full even if you've only eaten about half of your normal food. When going to the bathroom, you may skip days or even strain a lot. And you may need coffee or green tea or some sort of caffeine derivative in order to help you go. So after I talk to patients and have conversations and my antenna goes up about which one of these things may be causing their bloating, I do then like to get confirmatory testing with lab work or other test modalities in order to confirm suspicions that I have. So tests that I typically recommend for my chronic bloating patients are a comprehensive stool panel. I also definitely recommend a lactulose breath test similar to the one that I was talking about before. And then I do like to check people's thyroids because that can sometimes alter digestion and make people bloat chronically. And then I typically get a celiac screening test with a TTG antibody testing in order to either rule in or rule out celiac disease. This is where I start. You can definitely go a lot deeper and a lot broader, but these are the things that I think give you the biggest bang for your buck. One thing that I also recommend to patients that I think is super important is to log your bloating symptoms every single day to see when does it get better, when does it get worse, what are things that help it, how long has it been going on for. And if you want a way to do this succinctly and in a way that best communicates your symptoms to your doctor, I've actually made something I call my Smart Symptom Spreadsheet. It's completely free and I'll link it down in the description below. So getting to the secret sauce of the video, there are a few things that I recommend that you can do today in order to help reduce that sensation of bloating. Number one is a digestion reset. I like to think of this as eating for digestion, not necessarily eating for health. And you'll get what I mean in a second. Things like raw salads and raw vegetables may look healthy and good, especially on Instagram and TikTok, but those things, if you have gut issues, will 100% make your bloating worse. So the first thing that I would recommend is cutting down the amount of salad and vegetables that you consume, at least in half, if not getting rid of them completely, for about 30 straight days. I also recommend whenever you eat to chew your food thoroughly, at least 15 to 20 times before you swallow, because chewing is that first step in the digestion pathway. The other thing that I do recommend in conjunction with that stuff is doing what I talked about before, and that is a stepwise approach in eliminating certain foods and elimination diet type of format. So starting with dairy or gluten and then going to fructose and then the FODMAPs. The second thing that I would do is a gut-brain reset. Your gut isn't just this hollow tube that lives in the center of your body. It's wired with a bunch of nerves that are actually connected to your brain by one big nerve called the vagus nerve. When you're tense and under stress, the bloating will tend to follow. So things that I would do to try to slow down the stress response are things like taking a walk after each meal if you can, especially after dinner. Even a 10 to 15 minute walk 2 to 3 days a week can not only aid in digestion, but it'll really help reduce that bloating symptom overall. The other thing that I really try to urge my patients to do is to shift your body into a more rest and digest state. And the best way that I found to do that is something called box breathing. And what you do with box breathing is you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds, creating a nice little box. And in doing this, you take the stress response of your body and you just quiet things down a little bit. And I found this definitely helps reduce bloating overall. The third and final thing that I do recommend, and this goes for all of my patients that have any digestion issues whatsoever, I do recommend a solid pre and probiotic. There is one that I recommend to patients that I have found works best. It's in one pill, so you don't have to find a separate prebiotic and probiotic, and I'll link that down in the description below for you to check out in your own time. Looking into some red flags, these are things that if you have bloating and any one of these other symptoms, it would definitely make me want to take a deeper dive into possibly some more invasive testing than just the stuff we covered earlier. So if you have bloating and at least a 10 to 15 pound unintentional weight loss, or if you have persistent blood in your stool, or you have a low-grade fever and consistent night sweats, these are all of the signs plus bloating that would make me want to look a little bit deeper. All right, friends, so we've covered a lot of information today, and I want to do a quick summary to help make things a little bit more digestible, with no pun intended. We've talked about the 4 most common root causes of bloating, including food tolerances, gut dysbiosis, SIBO, as well as chronic constipation. We've also talked about some lab tests and other testing modalities to help solve what's going on. And while we're looking for the root cause of the bloating, we've also talked about certain things that you can start doing today that may help, including a digestion reset, a gut-brain reset, as well as targeted supplements. These changes don't just ease symptoms, they do build momentum. And momentum is everything when you've been stuck in cycles for a long time. By the way, if this video resonated with you and you want a space to ask questions, talk about your symptoms with others, and finally feel heard, I recommend checking out our free community called Vitals and Voices, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. He fills the hungry with good things. This is from the book of Luke, chapter 1, verse 53. As Jesus, our ultimate healer, walks with us, remember, you were created for purpose. Let's walk together toward restoring that.